This video was sponsored by MinisForum. I think this project is really a continuation of the Concept Dev Setup build series, where we did this build series where we were doing things in a very different way from the norm so that we could figure out new stuff to implement onto a more standardized setup. In this case though, it's not really a desk setup anymore, it's more like a chair setup. And it started out in a very funny way, so this company MinisForum reached out and offered to send me a mini PC, which I was quite excited for because I wanted to do a cyber deck build sometime in the future, and I think a mini PC like this would really lend itself nicely to that. It comes with this nifty little vase mount plate, which is really cool because you can hook it up to the back of a screen, for example, make it into more of a portable solution. But the initial idea was like a cyber cube, and I thought it was an interesting idea, you know, like two keyboards at the side, mini screen at the top, and maybe a trackball mouse integration somehow. And it would be inspired by like the box style cameras that you often see in cinema work. Eventually though, I strayed away from this idea because I figured, you know, I wouldn't really be using it a whole lot. The cyber cube is not really a useful type of thing. It would be an interesting concept build for a later video. But in this video, I wanted to focus on trying to figure out a new ergonomic way of like interacting with the setup. I was inspired by some videos that I saw on Instagram where they had mounted the keyboards onto the chair itself, which is really cool because if you change your seating position, the keyboard position doesn't necessarily need to change, right? And I wanted to integrate the mini PC because that makes it a totally standalone setup, so you could just roll around the room with this chair and the PC is kind of integrated into it. It's a really nifty little device. It has a Ryzen 5 7545U processor in there, 16GB of RAM or 32GB of RAM, and also 1TB of storage. So it has a USB 4 port at the back over here, and that supplies power and transfers the video data as well. In this case, we're using that port to connect the Rainier Air 2S, which is a pair of AR glasses. In terms of the build quality, everything is made out of plastic, and it does squeak a little bit when you press in on it really hard. With that USB 4 port at the back, you could also connect an external GPU, I believe. So in that way, you might actually be able to turn it into a little mini gaming rig, but I'm not entirely sure if that's actually the main purpose you want to be using it for. I've seen a lot of people rig them up to be like a NAS or a home theater center, and I think that's a really neat use case for one of these things. Let me know in the comments what you would use something like this for. I'll leave some links in the description down below as well. Special thanks to MinisForum for sponsoring this video. The chair I'm using for this project is the Secretlab TITAN. I've had this thing for a number of years now, like at least 5 or 6. And one of the armrests is a little bit loose, so I wanted to take it apart, see how that functions, maybe also, you know, check out if we can mount it onto here. The entire system is really cool. It basically works on this latching mechanism. You press one side in, this lever kind of pulls this metallic piece outwards, and that allows you to adjust it. Taking this thing apart, it seems like this thing is really well constructed, but it also seems like there's some planned obsolescence going on in here. And eventually we just had to tighten these 4 screws at the bottom over here. I'm always really inspired when I take stuff apart because you can really see how it functions. So in this case, they used a pair of ball bearings, and as soon as you clip inwards, then one of the ball bearings kind of falls into this little slot, and that allows you to move it side to side. So I put it all back together, and I took the main plastic component to the 3D scanning station because initially I thought I'd be mounting a 3D printed component onto this with a laser cut sheet of multiplex, and in that way actually connecting the keyboards. Eventually I opted against this because we wouldn't really have ergonomic adjustability on the keyboards themselves, or at least not enough to the point where it'd be really useful, and it'd be a lot harder to actually design, make it function properly with plastic components as well. It'd be super flexible. Eventually I came up with this idea to mount monitor arms onto the side, and there's enough room between the armrest and the chair to mount one of these monitor arms. But in general they landed right where they needed to be, so when I was sitting in a comfortable position, my hands were just resting right where those armrests would stick out. So we can just take those armrest components and unscrew them. I don't necessarily like drilling new holes into components like this, especially because we're doing 2 at the same time, and I just know that I'm not accurate enough to get both aligned perfectly the same. So there is going to be some variability in this. As soon as those holes are in place though, we can put this 10mm bolt through it, and that threads onto the monitor arm. Now the monitor arms we're integrating are a little bit too long, so they bump into the armrest. Had to saw those down to length. And of course I made sure to sand down the edges over there so there's nothing sharp like sticking out. And once those are dropped into place, I put a washer and a bolt on the bottom over there because there is this plastic component which it needs to connect onto. And it's definitely not the best in terms of looks, but it doesn't interfere with your seating position whatsoever because it's all the way at the side over here. And it does offer quite a lot of adjustability in terms of future upgrades as well. Like these monitor arms are just really versatile in, you know, allowing us to attach different things. But you could also add some joysticks to this thing if you play a lot of Star Citizen, for example. That would be really cool. I personally don't, but I'd really like to get into playing Star Citizen just so I could build a setup for it. I'm reutilizing the print that we came up with for the concept desk at the build series with some slight modifications so that we can actually add like a trackball mouse to this thing as well. It essentially consists of 3 components. So we have the 3D printed piece which is in the center. We bolt a multiplex sheet onto the bottom of that, and in this case I left some mounting points for these M5 bolts to go through, and this has to do with the mouse solution. So initially I actually thought of putting a trackpad on this thing, and I still think that would be a better solution, but I still have some components from a trackball mouse. And I came up with this design where it's somewhat sticking out of the side and it looks super strange, but I kind of like it as well. I'm 3D printing the bottom plate over here that connects to the trackball and the scroll wheel, and the rest of the components aren't really mounted to anything, they're just hidden away underneath this shell. So if you're enjoying the video, then definitely consider subscribing, leaving a like, leaving a comment, really helps me out. If you'd like to support the channel even further, you can also check out my Patreon page. I upload all of the designs, all of the 3D scans, and in that way it keeps the channel a little bit more sustainable as well. So special thanks to all of the Patreons who are over there already. Actually having that conversion from the CAD software, even though, you know, it's a little bit more rough than you would see it in the CAD software, it's really satisfying seeing everything come together. For the other side, I'm actually reutilizing the 3D print that we made for the concept desk at the build series, so we didn't have to modify this in any way. And the base mounts on these monostorms aren't actually removable, so the bolts are already sticking through on the keyboard side of things. You just plonk it on there and then put a nut on the other side. I still need a spot for the mini PC, and initially I wanted to put that at the bottom of the chair so that you wouldn't actually see it, but then you wouldn't have quick access to the ports. So eventually I found this cable tray on the monster arm itself, and I created this little bracket for it, and this really helps in regards to actually being able to plug stuff in and see the computer, you know, troubleshoot stuff really quickly. And it also helps with the Rainier Air to Rest because we can plug those in without actually having to extend the cable. It does interfere with the adjustability a little bit, so sometimes it hits armrest and that can be quite frustrating. I'm also a little bit concerned about the safety of the ports because you're a lot more likely to actually snag something. In a future iteration, I would actually like to power the mini PC via a battery bank, which is totally capable of doing, but that USB port is actually filled up with the Air to Rest. I will say it's a little bit hard to use sometimes if you're searching for a specific key and you kind of need to look over, right? Especially with the Rainier Air to Rest on your face, you have to look underneath the screen and check out if everything's okay. Another thing I'd really like to try is adding an edit pad to my left hand side, because when I'm chilling behind my desk setup, then it's really difficult to reach the edit pad that I built into it. And in this way, it'd be really relaxing to just like cut through some footage. Alright, that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some inspiration. If it did, you want to check out the concept desk at the build series as well. That one will pop up on the screen somewhere over here. And yeah, wish you a wonderful day.